Welcome to the Co-Host Bros Podcast, where we break down everything short-term rentals, entrepreneurship, and building a profitable hospitality business. Whether you're a host, investor, or property manager, we share real strategies, real insights, and real experiences to help you scale smarter and grow faster. Let's dive in.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the Co-Host Bros Podcast. My name is Matt Cotta. I'm here with Austin Spitz, and today we have Dr. Rachel Gainsbrugh. And we're going to dive into her story, what's going on with her, and so welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. What an honor to be here with you guys.
Yeah, we're super excited to have you. And for our listeners that don't know, give us a little background. I see the doctor in front of your name, so maybe you do a little bit of something before you got into short-term rental space. So give our listeners a little background that don't know maybe what you do, and kind of how you came about in the short-term rental space.
Yeah, absolutely. So graduated and got my doctorate, which was the pride and joy of my whole family. Yay. Rachel's a doctor, but sadly that came with $500,000 in student loan debt. Originally from Miami, Florida, was born in the Western Hemisphere, the poorest country in the Western Hemisphere in Haiti. Just was grinding it out in medicine, hopping from hospital to hospital. My husband and I remember between the two of us, we had 5 jobs and it just became unsustainable. And so I started to find myself slowly slipping the Dave Ramsey hat off as we were trying to do this debt snowball to get rid of the student loan debt. And we stumbled upon a little podcast called Bigger Pockets. And so got the real estate investing bug, but I was really strategic. I had gotten myself into one mess. I didn't want to get myself into another mess. So I wanted to be really strategic how we were going to implement this particular strategy. And so instead of going all in on wholesaling, fix and flip, syndications, I looked at every single one of those strategies and I ran models and spreadsheets, et cetera, and I determined, you know what? Short-term rentals, particularly a little bit more on the higher end side, upscale types of short-term rentals, that's going to be the biggest bang for my buck as it relates to real estate investing. To this day, I can look back and I still stand by short-term rental being the best investing strategy, especially for busy professionals who are paying off student loans and getting tax up to the hilt as well. So leveraging bonus depreciation, cost segregation studies. So it was really the best of both worlds. And we get to invest in properties and in markets that we absolutely enjoy as well. So that's the long and short of it, but we can dive in for sure.
Sure. So when you were working and you were a pharmacist, correct?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and then you decided, did you buy like your first short-term rental the traditional way where you saved up money and put a down payment? Did you get creative with it? Like, how did you get your first deal and like what did it look like?
Yeah, so interesting enough, I was actually exploring a number of strategies. I remember the day that I said, you know what, I'm going to go all in on real estate. I had signed up for all of the free Facebook groups out there for real estate, BRRRR, investing, all the things. And so my husband and I, we had cobbled together savings, 401k. We took a little bit of money out of our 401k. We had a bonus check. So we just piled of cash from all of those jobs that we were working at the pharmacy, at the hospital, a variety of places. And it came to about $19,000 or so. And there was a property right there. I could see it right there in one of the Facebook groups that I thought, okay, this is the absolute perfect property to start with. It was in Alabama. I live in Atlanta, so it was a short drive away. 3-bedroom, 2-bath, light minty green color. It was the absolute perfect property. The light was shimmering on the side. We were driving to Alabama. He was driving, kicking and screaming because he was not about that risky real estate investing life. And I was going on and on and on about how amazing this was going to be. This is the property that was going to change everything for us. And we get closer and closer and closer. And I start to realize, hold up, where are we? He looks over at me. He's like, "Hun, is this the property?" And I'm like, no, there's no way. So I get back on my phone and I'm scrolling and scrolling. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the address. Needless to say, this was a property from a wholesaler from that Facebook group. $17,000, 17 smackaroos. I thought this one property was going to change my life. And so as we were driving back, just really feeling defeated, like, oh my gosh, the property was dilapidated. The roof was caving in. It looked like it was held together by cottage cheese or caulking. Nothing like the photos. So needless to say, we were so disappointed. My husband, I think he was fine. He was like, yeah, let's get back to business as usual, paying off the student loan debt. And for me, I tell the story because I think it's really important to understand where your strengths and weaknesses are. For another type of investor, like my girlfriend Katie, she's a developer. For her, it would have been great. But for me, we are mathletes, right? We're not fix and flippers. We do not have the capacity or the time. Our roles at our W-2s and our time was better served actually making money at our W-2s so that we could continue to invest and get access to some of the best lending products out there. And so that's when I decided, I drew a line in the sand. I said, you know what? It's going to be a quality over quantity situation for us. We're not part of the We Buy Ugly Houses crew. We're part of the We Buy Pretty Houses crew that need a little bit of a lipstick. And so we took that $17,000, and I kid you not, the next day a property came onto the market in our own backyard for $290,000. We understood our market, and I knew the property values there were $400,000. We purchased that property. With that down payment, we found a lender in town that was willing to do a 5% down. So shout out to the local credit unions. Do not sleep on your local credit unions. 5% down. We furnished it. That first one off of Facebook Marketplace from a family who was downsizing from a 4-bedroom that was newly designed. She had a cancer diagnosis. She wanted to live on the beach on a condo. We took everything out from their property. They sold their house. We furnished ours. And that first month we made $6,000 with a mortgage of $1,500. And you know what? I was hooked. So fast forward to today, we've grown our portfolio based off of that, just kind of rinsing and repeating and leveraging tax strategy, using tax refunds, which is something we never got before real estate, to pile up cash to create more down payment opportunities to purchase our next and then our next.
What you said is great because a lot of people sleep on the lender thing. They're like, I'll go to traditional. I'll call my broker who I did the same thing. I called the broker who got me my primary house. And then, it was like, oh yeah, I'll give you 10% down. Then it was 20, then it was this, then it was that. And it was like, to your point, I mean, shop around, go to local banks and see what you can get. Right. So the first house was a bust. So your husband was so happy, I'm sure. Right. Your husband sounds like my wife. So she wasn't very thrilled, and I'm just like the kind of guy who's just like, oh, let's do it. Sure, yeah. Why not? Like, screw it. What's the worst thing that can happen? We have to sell it. I mean, whatever. Exactly. So that's awesome. So do you still have that original house?
No, we actually sold it because initially there was something in place called an what was it called? It was an optional HOA. And so warning, right? Fair warning to everyone who's listening right now, be very, very leery of HOAs. And I knew that from the get-go, to be leery of HOAs. But what I perceived as an optional HOA turned out to be a mandatory HOA. And it just was not conducive to short-term rental after 3 years. So we sold it and we 1031 exchanged those funds into another property. And it had gained so much appreciation. It was phenomenal.
And then also your point, I don't think a lot of people understand the tax benefits from, and especially like busy doctors. And I'm sure you probably tell them like, look, you could buy this one property. You can do minimal amount of work. I mean, you only have to meet a certain qualification. It's not 24 hours a day type of deal with, one property, and they could just save a lot of money, right?
Yeah, about 2 hours a week is where I clocked it, because you want to participate materially, meaning you want to do stuff for the property, about 2 hours a week. So that's 100 hours a year or so. Once you, in that particular calendar year. So if you were to put it in service, let's say October, like Dr. Donna in our community, she purchased a property in October. She put it under contract October. She closed in November. She put it into service in December. And you know what? She met material participation. And for that calendar year, she got all of those tax savings. And at that point, it was 80% bonus depreciation, which is amazing.
I get scared when I do my taxes, and then I do my taxes, and I'm like, oh yeah, I could write off this and this. Yeah. And I'm like, I feel so much better, but I was so worried I was going to have to pay a ton of money. So that's great. So I do want everyone to know that you did sell a house, or try to sell a house on Netflix, right?
Yes. Did you guys get to watch that episode?
I've seen it. Yes. I've seen the episode. I think it's still on Netflix. I think you can still watch it on Netflix.
Yeah, it was such an interesting experience, to say the least. So this was the third property that we had purchased, same market, a little bit larger. Did you guys want me to share a little bit about the background?
Yeah. I want you to tell everybody about your experience and everything. I mean, because it's not every day we have a TV star on here.
A TV star.
Right?
If you say so, my friend.
And a doctor at the same time. We have a doctor and a TV star.
Goodness gracious. A lot's going on. She's too busy. She's doing too much. It was, to say the least, it was one of the most surprising experiences that I've ever had in my life, because I grew up, my dad says, you can't sing, you can't dance, do math. So never, it's like, eat your heart out, Dad, I'm on TV. So I was never a performer. I never anticipated to be on TV in any way, shape, or form. And this is just a small segment of an episode for a series called Buy My House. So after that second property was launched, it was doing well. That second property was actually our first midterm rental property, where we were able to host families who were displaced due to disaster. And we said, you know what, rinse and repeat, let's do it again. And so we like to dive into the same market and just continue to expand before we go wide into a whole other market, right? We have the infrastructure in place, we have the cleaners in place. And so I said to myself, okay, let's go ahead and get a third property. And this property, I was really reevaluating our cleaners. I felt like they were starting to drop the ball on a few things, and we were recruiting another set of cleaners that could really support our business and support this new property. So once I launched this property, I said, let me go ahead and set it for a 30-day minimum, a 30-night minimum, however, or if you will. And so initially I wanted to set it for 30 nights. Just to make sure we can get our cleaning team going, to give it a little bit of breathing room, just to set it up in the way that we want to and work out all the kinks. It's an older home, but great bones, really great property. And so the day that we were launching, I went ahead and turned on the dynamic pricing tool. I was anticipating, since the first property was making around $6,000 a month, the second property around $7,000 a month, the third one, I went a little bit bigger, so I was thinking $8,000 or $9,000 a month. And so I turned on that dynamic pricing tool, anticipating that it would hit around 8,000, maybe 8,500, dare I think 10,000. There's no way. There was no one that I knew at that point in my life that was able to afford 10K per month. Like, not us, not anyone in our sphere of influence. And so went ahead and launched it, turned on the dynamic pricing tool, anticipating that, with Price Labs, that's the dynamic pricing tool that we use, you got to kind of train it, calibrate it, get the base rate, locked in. I typically will have the lower minimum set. I would leave the upper max like wide open, that kind of thing. And so it listed the property for 30 days at $28,000. And I was like, okay, Price Labs, you are bugging, my friend. Let me go ahead and turn you off and recalibrate and start from scratch. It got booked right before I turned it off.
For 28 grand?
For 28 grand.
Did you fall over?
I didn't sleep that night. I did not sleep that night because I was thinking to myself, where else am I playing small? Where else am I playing small in life? Because I was going to calibrate and train this particular tool to set this property's rate at 8 or 9,000. That was the plan, right? So it got booked at 28K. It averaged around 15 to 21K over the next several months. AirDNA and a casting company called Mystic Arts reached out to us when they saw those numbers and said, "We'd love for you to be on a TV show." I thought it was a joke. It looked kind of spammy. I was like, sure. And so my husband, at this point, he had, after the second property, he had retired from his W-2. So he was filling out the paperwork. I was like, babe, take a look at this, fill out the paperwork to see if there's anything there. And yeah, so he followed through. Full transparency, I wouldn't do it again. I am not made for it. It was like, hurry up and wait. You can't go anywhere. The types of cameras need to be scheduled correctly. And so you're like held hostage for days and days. And I like my flexibility. I like to go here, there, and everywhere. And you're just waiting for the right cameras just for them to roll something in and that's it. I was like, oh my gosh, that was the whole day. Okay, we'll see you tomorrow for another batch of shooting. And it was like, oh my gosh, this is not glamorous. And I look back now, it's hilarious. I was so stiff with the camera. They're like, look over here. And I kept looking directly into the camera like I was boring my eyes. I was like, hi, my name is Rachel. Like, I got so stiff. As soon as the camera turned on, I lost all personality. It's painful, guys. This girl is not made for showbiz.
Well, you can't necessarily say that because you've only done it one time, right? So you just ripped the Band-Aid off. You got to get a second or third time. You're going to become more natural, and that's how it is. It's just the first time thing. That's what I'm thinking.
Goodness, I doubt it. It's just a lot of like sitting around and waiting. It's like I need to be doing things. So yeah.
Yeah, if
You're
you're gonna make
trying
it
to sell your house too afterward, after waiting all that time. They're
Well,
like, oh, pitch me your house. They're like, pitch me
yeah,
your house after waiting all
I
that time. Like, oh, you can have it. I gotta go.
at this point, yes.
Sorry, Austin.
No worries. I did want to ask one thing. So, like, when you're
Yeah.
saying this, you're saying like monthly pricing. You're having it calibrated in price labs for monthly pricing. So that makes me think to myself, you're not doing traditional vacation rental operations. Are you renting to more of a midterm tenant, correct? Or like, tell me a little bit about in your program how you teach and like what kind of client you're going after because it's not vacation rental management, correct?
It's a combination because as I mentioned a little bit earlier, Austin, we have the bonus depreciation cost segregation. So that tax strategy only works for stays that are less than or equal to 7 days on average. So for calendar year one, you have to rent it out as a short-term rental. Once you have received all of your tax benefits, that's what I call the depreciation double dip. Then we switch it to a midterm rental if you're more in a suburban market, or you continue to rent it out as a short-term rental. Like our Florida property that's in the like Rosemary Beach market, that's going to be a short-term rental year-round, right? However, we have Georgia properties that are in the suburban area in Georgia. Those are going to be midterm rentals.
Okay, so part of your strategy deal is to do it as run it as a short-term rental to reap the tax benefits from it. And once you do all that, then you can be able to transition it if the market dictates it and it's more profitable to do a midterm rental then at that point you switch it to a midterm rental, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So you want to go in clear-eyed on what your ultimate strategy is. Always know what all of your exit strategies and opportunities are. So yes, for sure.
Okay, gotcha. So you mentioned you retired your husband first, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you retired him and he didn't have to do his W-2 anymore, and now you don't do your W-2 anymore either.
Correct.
So
Mm-hmm.
how did that journey look like? Because we have a lot of people that are listening that are on that path to financial freedom, and they're starting co-hosting business. Maybe they have 1 to 10 properties, something like that, and they're like, how did that situation kind of play out with you? How did you reach financial freedom, and what was that like?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for my husband, he actually had a really stressful psychological practice. He worked with at-risk youth in the public school system. And so he saw a lot of things like kids who had encountered parents who were taken by homicide, a lot of abuse. So it started to weigh on him significantly. And I could see the toll that it was taking on him. And so he cut back a little bit. And then finally, as our business started to expand, and he was looking at the numbers and they were undeniable, because when we were starting out, we were the cleaners for that first property. After I had made 12 beds, I said, you know what, never again. And so we hired cleaners. And then from there, we were, trying to do some of the maintenance. And then we hired our maintenance person, who is phenomenal. And then from there, we kept the guest communications, in-house between him and I. We could tag team it, and he was doing such a great job. He's really quick. Like there's read texts. I have like 7 texts that I've read and I've been trying to respond to since last week. And I can't get to them, right? Because I want to sit here and overthink them. But he's really quick to the draw with his text messaging, and he's able to respond. I created little on our little notes app, right? I was like, okay, if they ask for a discount, here's what to say. So like had our little canned responses all in on a notes app that we literally were sharing with one another. And so he took over the guest communication, and he says, you know what, I think I can do this. I was like, yeah, do it, especially since you're so stressed out. And so he put in his resignations. He went all in on it. And then we expanded our portfolio. So we were able to take down 5 properties, a portfolio. At that point, I was a part of a mastermind, and I was pitched this particular portfolio, ran my numbers. I am a numbers girl. I am very in tune with acquisitions. I go into the markets. I really understand the demographics of the guests that are coming in. I've actually built ChatGPT bots at this point to really understand the demographics of the guests and the types of guests that will want this type of property. At that point, there was no ChatGPT, but it took me hours to analyze markets. And I knew this was a market that I was interested in just because of the travel patterns. And this was in the Poconos initially. And so in 1 month, we had made with our portfolio nearly one of our entire annual salary, which was something that just for me, that was something I think prior to seeing it for myself, I would have thought it was a hoax. You know what I mean? Like, how do you make your annual salary in a month? And I still remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, so this can be real. So it's the economies of scale is really leveraging higher quality properties and putting those together. It's very much feasible, is very possible. And so he was able to retire. It took me a little bit longer. I come from a very, I would say, challenging background. I grew up dirt poor. And so I was addicted to the hustle, I feel like. So I was working, still a couple of jobs. And he kept looking at me. He was like, why are you still doing this? Why? I don't want to hear about your boss. I don't know why you're stressed out. Why are you still doing this? It's like, well, you just what's the number? And so all this to say, for those who are listening right now, determine what's the actual number, like your actual expenses. What do you need in order to cut back maybe to 50%, 0.5 FTE or a 0.25 FTE? What's the actual number? Not the vanity number, right? The vanity number is 100,000 a month. Okay, but why? What's the action? Is it 8,300 a month? Is it 3,000 a month? Really look at all of your expenses. Say you cleared up some of the ankle biter debts that are there. What is that actual number that it takes for you to live comfortably? What's the actual number to live a little bit more upscale? The actual number to live super ultra luxury? When you come up with those 3 numbers, then you have a visualization of, oh, maybe, just maybe, it would take 4 co-hosting properties for me to get halfway there. I don't know, right? So, and then you can get laser focused on the markets that would potentially get you as close to that number as possible and take it from there. So for me, I had met that number long time ago, but I just a lot of mindset work, guys. I still struggle with scarcity, abundance mindset. I have to remind myself that there's abundance, And so one day, I wrote it down. I wrote down my quit date. I wrote it down. I said, at the end of the year, I'm going to quit. I wrote it down. I made it clear. This is my date, my quit date. I'm going to go to the subway across the street. I'm going to sit down and cry out the old Rachel. And you got a whole doctor, right? Like, what am I going to tell my parents? It took me a year to tell my parents, we're immigrants. You don't get a doctorate and quit your job. Are you kidding me right now? So I had to hide it from them that I quit my job. Okay. Other story. All right. I'm going to go to the subway. I'm going to have this meditation ritual. I'm going to cry out the old Dr. Rachel, breathe in the new Dr. Rachel. So I had it mapped out. So it's going to be a monthly ceremonial thing to like deconstruct the identity situation that I was dealing with. That was in January. I mapped it out. By December, I was supposed to retire. Well, in February, I got an email from my boss about some type of new initiative where we were going to get paid less and work more. And I raged quit that day. I don't recommend it.
It's a good deal.
I don't recommend it, but I sure did.
Wait, sorry. Go back and I accidentally checked my phone for a second. Say that one more time. That last part.
Sure. So in
Like the
January,
last 10 seconds.
Sure. So in January, I mapped out the whole year of how I was going to go from January to February, just go through my whole ritual so that in December, I can quit my job. So that was January. By February, I got an email from my boss how we were going to work harder and get paid less, new initiatives that were going to come down the pike. And I went ahead and just rage quit my job that day.
Yeah, that's really funny. This very similar situation happened to me. I already had my property management business, and
Ooh.
they eliminated my position in my W-2 job.
Oh,
But
no.
I was already like you. I was checking out. I was just figuring out when I was going to check out. So they eliminated my position, and then a few weeks later, they called me back and said, "Hey, change of plans. We actually still have your position. You can come out. You can come back." And I had already like mentally checked out because I just needed the reason, right? I just was kind
Hmm.
of prolonging that day. And then long story short, I just said, no, I've already like committed to making the decision. I'm not coming back, even though you guys want me back now. So it was very, very similar situation. And it just I mean, would you say that it happened for the better, right? Like aren't you glad that it happened that way instead of waiting until December?
Yeah. And honestly, it should have happened sooner.
Yeah.
That's funny
Yeah.
because I think I met you, Austin, right when that happened, and we were
Maybe
talking about
so.
it, and you were like, "Yeah, they just laid me off." You're like, "I was working my way out the door, but I'm ready to leave now," and I was like, "Well, maybe it was a blessing that they let you go. Then I guess it's like perfect timing. They like helped you
Yeah, I
get
had
out
a
of there. Like,
date.
go
I
ahead."
had a date on my calendar like 2 months from that date, but then it was like a blessing, like you said, because they offered me this fat severance package instead of me leaving. Instead of me leaving on my own, they were like, "Hey, you can go, but take all this money with you and whatever." And I was like, "All right, yeah, I'm
Hey,
not coming back for sure."
Yes,
But
true.
anyways, it worked out for the better. I think the point of the story is once, like you said, once you establish your baseline of what you can do to pay all your bills, and you
Yeah.
have something else cooking, and you're able to do it.
Yeah.
Um, my story is similar to yours. Like you take the jump and kind of bet on yourself, right? Like that's what you should do at the end of the day. So I love that message. But now moving forward, you have a community and you help people do this as well.
Yeah.
So for our listeners, if you don't mind sharing, like what does your community look like and what is your goal for your community members that you're trying to help them achieve?
Yeah, so my community is primarily women in medicine. We accept fellows as well. It's women in medicine. We also have folks who come in that are engineers, that are in tech. However, we focus primarily, like our messaging is towards women in medicine because I can speak to them. I can speak their language. I know exactly what it feels like to be where they were back in the day, where that's exactly where I was. So it really started with a lot of questions in the workplace. Fellow doctors were asking me the same thing. We had dentists, pharmacists, colleagues asking me about what it was that I was doing because I had that air of unbotheredness. Like I again, $500,000 in student loan debt, that weighs on you, right? So you come into the workplace, you're really intense, you're working your fingers to the bone. And then once you start to generate some income outside of your W 2, you start to get that air of unbotheredness. I wasn't as bothered as before. I had clarity. I was able to, um, I would say, advocate for myself and advocate for others. And so I kept getting the question like, what you got? What else you got going on there, lady? What else do you have going on there? Because you're not picking up as many overtime shifts as you were in the past. I was like, yeah, I'm doing this thing on real estate and it's, covering my overtime shift. And so the same questions kept getting asked over and over again. Like, well, how did you find the property? How did you find the market? Well, how do you get another loan? Don't you have a loan already on your property? You can get 2 loans. I was like, yeah, you can. And so that developed into a little course. So I just my first batch was a group of pharmacists. I was like, well, if 10 of you guys want to get together, let's get together on Zoom and then I'll show you exactly what you need to do. Because again, same questions were being asked over and over again. And at that point, I was a member of Go Abundance. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. So it's like a mastermind for those who are in real estate and who are making money with real estate for the most part. And so in my Go Abundance, we have little pods. And one of the pods, they suggested that, hey, you should create a digital course or something like that. I was like, well, what's a digital course? And so that was kind of like all happening at the same time. To say, well, this real estate stuff, why don't you teach it to a few people? I was like, well, actually, some people are asking me about it. So I started to do my research and I realized, yeah, this is a great niche. I can actually speak to the pain points of my fellow medical professionals. I can show them like the specific roadmap and a roadmap that is so specific that is tailored towards busy medical professionals who are getting taxed up to their eyeballs, who are working more, but essentially getting nearly half of their paychecks, slashed to taxes, and working moms, just really, really busy individuals. And so that's pretty much who we've targeted. So my brand is called Short Term Gems. So each property is a gem because we're really intentional about finding properties that have the potential to generate 6 figures of income and save us 6 figures on taxes. So it's got to be a gem. And the academy is called the Luxury Rental Academy.
Do you think that the majority of your for lack of a better word, group members are their goals to quit their W-2 or kind of remain at their W-2 and leverage tax strategies, a little bit of both, or are more people are like, hey, if I can stack enough of these, like I'd like to do away with my W-2, or do you see that people kind of want to maybe do both?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say 80% are wanting to keep the W 2. And if I'm being fully transparent, I never imagined I wouldn't be working my W 2. Like, you don't go into healthcare to quit healthcare, right? It's a little bit deeper than that. But sometimes healthcare quits on you.
That's what I was gonna say. Healthcare quits you. No.
Healthcare quits you. Yes, yes. So that's the situation. So they don't go in wanting to quit, but the amount of stress and I would say toxicity that some of them are facing. Yeah, I've seen quite a few of them have to quit because they're just it's been tough. It's been tough to say the least. Hopefully it gets better, but it's tough. So my whole mission is to impact healthcare in the US by equipping over 1 million women with the tools that they need so that they could find that kind of freedom. Because when you're free, you go back into the workplace with a new perspective. And I truly feel that healthcare workers are the ones that are going to heal the healthcare system. Call it lofty, but that is my dream. And I feel as though if they have the tools that they need to take care of their financial wellness, right? They can then take care of their own wellness and the wellness of their patients as well. So that's the overarching vision.
That's awesome. So I wrote random words on my post-it so I could ask him his questions. So I remembered. I'm very unorganized, not like Austin. He writes full sentences. But I do want to circle back to because I meant to ask in your strategy when you were talking about I'm going to short term it to get material participation, and then I'm going to take the tax benefits. So is the strategy after that like maybe carry over the depreciation loss another year and then buy another property and do it again and continuously do that to offset your taxes as a high income individual? Is that the strategy?
Yeah, that's a strategy, especially when we're seeing potentially that some of the depreciation percentages could be increased as well. So the current situation is we're at 40% bonus depreciation. Next year it's down to 20% and it should phase out. However, the current administration says that they may bring it back to 100% bonus depreciation and even claw that back to 2024. We'll see how that pans out. I know that a lot of people are impacted right now with the financial economic situation. Even I was speaking with my designer, she's like, okay, our pre-launch dates, we've got to adjust them because of the tariffs and things like that. So that is the goal. Ultimately, we're still waiting to hear back to see what those numbers are going to look like.
Well, let's hope that passes.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot of people here around waiting for that to happen.
yeah,
Some people extending their taxes just because they're hoping, living on a dream. Um, and then now I want to circle back to your family too. So, like you said
yeah,
that at first, obviously, yeah, you came from a third world country. You're a doctor. It's very important. Your
yeah.
family's like, you're the first doctor, right? You're the first one making that money. You're in America, like all these things, and you hid it from them. So, how did they feel when you told them, and how do they feel about it now?
That's such a great question. So my dad, I feel like he was supportive. My mom, she was confused, but I was surprised. My dad, he was very, very supportive because I know he remembers when I used to drive to work after working like those 14-hour shifts. I would be driving from home or driving to work. And at some point, I remember having like such a brain fog. I wouldn't even remember like how I would get there. And that was the burnout. And he knew I was burnt out. I was burning the candle at both ends between my husband and he was too. And so for him, he felt like, oh my gosh, so my daughter came to this country, she got a whole doctorate, and now she's creating a business. So he was yeah, he was excited. He was excited. He was I could tell there was a little bit of concern. He was like, "Well, what about work? And what about this and that?" So it took a moment to get like, "I don't think I'm going back to work, Dad." So yeah, my mom, she was confused. At first, well, you know what? For certain roles that I had, I actually worked remotely from home. And so she was even confused about that. She was like, oh, there's medications at the house. And I was like, no, 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 we're not storing medications at our house. So they both were, it was an interesting response. I think they're both waiting for me to go back. I've heard little rumblings about that. Yeah. It's
They're still
weird.
waiting?
I think so.
Really?
Yeah,
And
I
how
have
long has it
another
been since you quit?
3 years. Yeah,
But you're not.
Yeah, you're not going
I
back.
don't think so. I don't think
Ain't no
so.
going back.
Unless,
You might go back and say hi to
unless the
everybody.
Lord comes from heaven and is like, this is your mission. You have to go back into healthcare. Like I need like some type of divine
Yeah,
statement.
but you've created the freedom for yourself that like if you ever wanted to, you could. It's optional, right? Like so
Yeah,
you've built and designed a life for yourself and you used to have to do that and
yeah.
you didn't have a choice. Now it's a choice, right? So that's the ultimate freedom in my eyes.
100%. Yeah. So work is optional. The W-2 is optional. And you're right. I think that's one of the pillars in my mind as I was navigating this. I said, you know what, worst case scenario, I'm not leaving off of bad terms. I was not investigated by HHS. Those are the ways that you don't get your job back. So I can actually go back at some point and they'll welcome me with open arms. And so let me go ahead and take this bet on myself. Let me go ahead and create a legacy for myself and not just for big pharma, and see how it pans out. And if it doesn't, I can go back. You're right.
Yeah, I think that's something people that they don't realize that like if you leave your W-2 or you try and do something, you try and build a business and you take the risk, like you could always go back, right? Like you can always go back to that position. So like I don't know, I'm a big firm believer of just burning the bridges. If you've got that monthly nut that you can cover and you can pay your bills and you have a bigger dream or you have a bigger vision, like burn the boats and go do that. And if the worst case scenario, you just go back and do what you were doing before. But what's worse is like getting towards the end of your life and you're like, I never tried that. I wish I would have done that. Right. That's the ultimate failure to me, is just not even trying. So I don't know.
Yeah, and you know what I figured out after I went all in on myself and I went all in on my business was the biggest ROI you have as an entrepreneur is focus. So when my focus was all in on the real estate coaching side, we 10x'd that year. That's the biggest ROI. Like if anyone is listening right now, if you're multitasking, come back to me. Your biggest ROI as an entrepreneur is your focus. So when I figured out, I'm going to escape the W-2 grind, I went all in on my business. We 10x. When prior to that, we were puttering along rather. And so think about that. Have you experienced anything like that?
Yeah, that's exactly what happened to me, I think, in my business. Like from when I stopped doing my W-2 and devoting all the time to that. And then when I was able to devote all of my time and be 100% in this other area of growing my business and being the best version of myself, I've seen that personal growth in my own self. I would, I don't know. I feel like I'm a little bit before you, but I think that I'm on that trajectory of that. And I hope that doesn't sound arrogant or anything, but that's
Oh,
truly what I feel, and that's because I'm all in on myself.
yeah.
Kind of like how you did right after you devoted all of your attention to building your business versus spending 14 hours driving home from the pharmacy, delusional and stuff like that. You can't. It affects the other category, right?
Mm-hmm. Love
I'm
Yeah.
puttering along at this point, but we'll be unputtering shortly.
it.
So when you decided you spent all this money getting a degree and did this job and you quit, at any point did you feel that like I just wasted my time and I should have just done this or sooner?
Oh my gosh. Yes, that's a feeling that crept in time and time again, right? Like you spent all this money, you have $500,000 in student loan debt, and now you're just going to walk away from it. That's what kept me. Those were the tentacles that were like the driving force that kept me in there for so long. And that was the part that I had to deconstruct. And so the way I see it now, because you can only connect the dots looking backwards, I think to myself, okay, ultimately everything happened for a reason, right? Ultimately, I get to change my mind. I get to change my mind. It's okay to change your mind, right? And we were just talking about it a little bit earlier. Guess what, guys? If I change my mind tomorrow and say I'm going back into healthcare, I get to do that too. And so that's the thing I think a lot of us in medicine we suffer from. It's almost like a sentence, a death sentence. Like, this is what you're only allowed to do. You better stay in your lane. You're a one trick pony. These are the things that I think just hold us down, but we get to change our mind. We can. And if at any point you feel like what you're doing right now is not resonating with you and you feel like, you know what, I've been made for a different purpose, give it a shot, change your mind, and then you can change it back if you want to. But it's worse not to try something, I think.
Well, if you were made for a different purpose, feel like you were made for a different purpose, more than likely you probably are.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of changing your mind, it actually segues into my other word I have written down here. So when you were creating that, I'm going to Sjogren it, call it a freedom number, right? When you were going to quit your job, that number, how many times did you move that number?
Oh my gosh. All the
How many times did you were just like, oh no, I need another 20 grand. Oh no, I need this. Oh, I need that.
oh
How long did it take you to decide on a number, even though you didn't get it because you just you up and quit? But I mean, how long did it
no,
take you to figure it out?
we had exceeded that number.
And you still were there.
Yeah, we had exceeded that number. We were making multiple six figures a month. And I said, oh, but my 7-year-old, I don't have undergrad, master's, and college doctorate saved all the way up for him. Oh, what about his brother? Oh, like there was always a moving target. And then, yeah, it was unnecessary. It really was.
So you were trying to figure it out to help other people in your family and making yourself the glutton for punishment?
I'm the
Or
first daughter. So this is, if you want this to be a therapy session, it can,
oh
being
no, I'm just asking.
the eldest daughter, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh my
a lot of
God. Oh my
responsibility.
God. It's a lot of responsibility. Yeah.
Crazy.
So
Um,
I'm telling
no,
the
that's,
audience how to do it, but I didn't even follow my own advice. I was like, know
you
your
can change your mind, she said.
number. Know your number, know your number. Rachel, what was your number? 3 million a month. Right? It was like seriously, really. I was like,
Uh,
don't follow vanity metrics.
3 million a
Meanwhile,
month. You're like, I'll never hit 3 million a month. Next month, you're like, we hit 2.9. What happened?
right.
Um, that's crazy. So, tell us like what your business looks like today. If you
Yeah.
self-manage, is it mostly just coaching now with short-term gyms, and that kind of stuff? Also, how many people out of the million have you helped so far? I'll give you a two-parter.
Oh, that's a great question. So, 78% of my revenue still comes from my rentals. The rest is the coaching. We're at about 57 to 61 properties that we own, and we have it in a fund as well. So we've expanded. We have a private equity fund, and it's a range because we're under construction on two. One is brand like ground up construction. One is undergoing a massive renovation due to a storm. Yeah, so it's around 57 to 61. So most of my income comes from the rentals, and and so that whole operation is set up. We have a team. We have operational team. I manage just one personally, just so that I can get frustrated with Airbnb, yell at them every week, see the new laws that are coming down the pike. But the majority of my day is centered around helping my coaching clients um, purchase their first property. So we primarily buy. We arbitraged one in the last couple of years, which for those who aren't aware, arbitrage is when you're renting to rent because we got a $16,000 a month contract from the insurance company. They wanted our property, but our property was fully booked by that same company. And so I just reached out to a local landlord. I said, I need your house for $2,900 a month so that I can grab the 16K per month. And that was 13 months. So when I have a contract in hand like that, I'm happy to arbitrage just to take advantage of that because typically they need the property in 72 hours, and I wouldn't be able to transact or close on a property in 72 hours. Um, as far as coaching, we've been able to help 2,400,
All right.
2538 launch their first short-term rental and take advantage of those tax strategies. The average Airbnb host makes less than 30,000 a year. 80% of Airbnb hosts makes less than 30,000 a year. 100% of our members make above uh, 30,000 a year, and I would say our average is 88,000 gross top line revenue per year per property because we use data tools like the global AirDNA. We make sure that we understand our numbers before we purchase a property, and so there's no emotional ties to the real estate strategy. We take that into consideration depending on where someone is at. Like I've had a couple of 70-year-old clients who have come to me who want a legacy or property that will cover its expenses. They do have a little bit more of an emotional tie with the property, but still we want to make sure that they're able to cover their expenses and they're buying properties in the right markets as well.
I love it. That's great. I mean, you're well on your way to a million. I think you'll hit it. You seem pretty ambitious. Like you hit everything that
Yeah,
you want to hit. So
thank you. Thank
maybe
you.
you'll move it to 5 million before it's over. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, we believe we can do it. Yes, but it's a team sport. So if there are women doctors listening, let's get on board.
Hey, and if you women doctors are listening to us, I'm highly surprised and I appreciate it and thank you. Leave us a review. That would be great. Um, yeah. Okay, so can you just tell everybody? I mean, we appreciate your time. I mean, it's like been 50 minutes, and we all talked before this, and I know you're busy. You're busy, busy, busy running the gyms. If you could just tell everybody where to find you and everything else like that, and we'll wrap it for you so you can get going, and we can all get to moving our lives around, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. If you go to, I would say 75gems.com, that's 75gems.com. I've got a free gift for you. That's my top list of the 75 cities with the highest profitability for short term rentals. Grab that. And of course, I will link you to all my social media spaces from there. So 75gems.com.
Awesome. And I will put that in the show notes. And this episode will actually drop today because we are behind. So, in about an hour from now, I'm going to hustle my ass off and get it uploaded because my partner in crime likes to cancel on me. No, I'm just kidding. Um, but yeah, thank you so much for coming. I mean, we really appreciate it. It was great getting to meet you and hear everything about you. And well, I'm sure our guests really appreciated it. And yeah, I mean, I really hope to hopefully see you in person someday. So
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
thank you. And with that, I'll let Austin just ring us out.
Thank you all for listening. Peace.